Happy New Year, everyone. And I do January for the simple fact that I like to think that everybody comes in and they want to like start out fresh, and they don't really, and my ego thinks it's all to see me, but that's beside the point. So, ouch, ouch. So what we're doing today is this nice little stand-up winged bowl. When you're around here long enough, you get to see a lot of pro turners. And Mike Hosaluk out of Canada, this was one of his demos. So I had the opportunity in a let class or a Sunday class where I actually turned one of these, and we're talking 10, 15 years ago. He was a younger man back then, and so all of us were. But so this gives you a little more thing. This is going to be a little more three-dimensional, and it starts out with the basics of the wing bowl. But we have to be a little more precision because what we end up with. So everything comes into is setup, setup, setup. So I want to make sure that when I set this up, my blank is centered here, and I'm using my tool rest here to make sure that happens. And I spin it, and I see my distances between this block and where I'm sitting. So I'm dead center right here. So I'm going to swing over, and if some of you have seen me before, I don't like to turn between centers. Simple fact that Larry said that he took it off, put it on his jam chuck so he can get his ends a little better. Always spin the lathe before you turn it on. We're going to start out slow into here, and I'm going to put a tenon on. So we're going to take it up in speed. This is just a friction fit against the jaws of the chuck. I have a Cindy Drozer tip on this so that the little point coming into this is only about an 1/8 inch to a 1/16 deep. So I don't want to sit there and get a catch into this and make this nasty. The reason I'm putting this face shield on is when I start turning the wing part, I don't want it to fall off. Safety, safety, safety. So in here, I'm going to set up and start cutting up for my tenon. I'm keeping all the cuts over my jaw, because pressured in won't let it fly off. It's the pressure on the outboard will make it fall. So everything sets up into this, and I got to set my dovetail up into this. I get a good flat. I want to dovetail, so I'm going to throw a skew into here. Get this cut, and you can see that even at this point, it's rocking just a little bit, or at least I see it. So I set up my flats in my jaw. I got this here. I'm going to hit the stop. I'm going to pull this out. And I re-chuck it. And I made it too small. That was a bad thing. But this is the bottom of the wing bowl. So it really doesn't matter where I'm at into this point, because I'm going to be cutting that away anyways. There's my dovetail. There's my flat. You're only as good as how fast you can switch out your mistakes. I'm surprised Pete isn't abusing me right here. Feeling sorry for me.
You can't read your t-shirt.
I know. I didn't measure it all, did I? Thanks. So now we're on the jaws. You can run your center up into this. I am going to pull this so I don't hit my elbow. And you gotta love these. We spin that out. So we're making a perfect circle here. Because I want everything to work out, I have these jigs made right here. So this is our circle that we're gonna achieve right here. So I need to start this center right here. So I'm gonna take my dividers and I'm going to go right here on this distance right here, which is set. I'm gonna start it out on slow. Check this out one more time. I'm here. Remember, you only drag your left leg as you touch this, and then you see where you're at and you move into where this comes to where it matches. You don't put both points in at the same time, bad things happen. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to hit this just a little bit right there because that's where my opening is going to be. Now I did this demo at 2200 RPMs at home, which is going to be right where the let class will be hitting. I do like this a little hotter. It gives, because you have voids between everything that's going on here, your tool starts to skip. So we have to come in here and we hit the tool, we have all this void, and then we hit again. So the faster you go, the less voids you have. I use a 40-40 grind. I use a push cut. And there's a few things that happen really well with this. It allows this to keep my cuts perfectly clean. Everybody can still hear me, right? Good? Thumbs up? Love it. So we're in here, we're following the cut of the tool rest. The nice thing about a 40-40 grind, if you're using it correctly, I will have 0 chips on this edge. I also get a really nice clean cut on the surface. So again, spin, come in. I'm going to clean this edge up a little bit in here. Start it so I can follow this cut down. I'm using the tool rest as a guide so I know where my arc is running. I'm coming down to where I have a 1/4 inch left on this edge, but I also want a little more on this. I'm going to check right here how my diameter is. And it still needs to come in a little. So I'm going to clean that up just a little more. I'm working on this, making a nice cut, but also I can't have it straight across. I'm creating a circle here when we come into this. Of just a little more right there. So I'm actually coming in and making a dovetail. Because that's the way the bowl is going to roll down onto that. I'm going to clean this area up here and then keep going on my cuts. I'm training my cut so I know I'm always making the same cut, making it flow into this. And if you notice I'm getting a little chatter there, that's because I'm pressing a little too hard on the rub. Now the interesting thing I found about this is that when I was doing this demo, working on this demo for the last 2 or 3 days, the larger cutter prevented, made less chatter. So by doing this and having a bigger wing, this came in here where, if you could hear it, I have less chatter for the simple fact that I have more surface of the cutter going into this. One more cut across that surface. Nice and easy, nothing heavy. I got a little chatter right there. I'm gonna pick up the cut into here. Get right off of there. Not helpful. I'm gonna clean this area right here. Finish up that radius. I can back scrape a little bit, but it will cause chipping. I'm gonna stop right here, midway, and you're gonna see that back scrape. I got a line right there where I stopped, but you see the chipping right here where it's causing that. Very little, but there's still chipping. So the best way is still a finish cut with a push cut. Making this last cut, I'm gonna pick up this last little bit of dust right there. Make one smooth cut, nice and slow. And about where I want to be. We'll see where we are, if I want one more cut or not. Surface looks really good. I would like to go just a little narrower there, but the surface looks really good. It is a demo, we don't want to die. So at this point in time, I'm going to make one more cut though, because I want to get rid of that flat that's going on. So I got to make this cut to bring that down to where I can pick it up the tool. Nice and gentle, make my dust. I'm just going to walk that down. Nice and slow. Then it makes a cut. There's the finished cut. Radius looks halfway decent. Little high spot right there where we couldn't pick it up. Okay, we're going to check our diameter again. Any questions? Notice that we're dead on. Okay, so it's a little tight right out there. We start to roll down. The reason we're rolling down if you notice right here, I went straight across. That radius doesn't fit. So that's why we have to set up the dovetail to set up the whole radius. So, a couple things I do right here now is I lay out for my plan for my wing. I like pin because it shows up really well. So there's my wing. So when we're turning, this is going to give us right where we want it to do. The other aspect in this, I'll use mine. So we're going to come across here and I'm going to set this jig up flat off of this edge. I'm going to flatten it out so it's strictly parallel, so I have this edge. I know exactly where that edge of that bowl is. So I can take this jig, set it right above, knowing where we are, and I can trace out this cylinder. So now I know that radius continues over perfectly where that bowl is. So what I end up doing is taking this, putting it on my trace, and I am a little shy Pardon me while I adjust my piece. I wouldn't have had to do that if I would have not put that extra tenon in there. So I'm setting this up for my radius. So you can see I'm just a hair long. And this is very important because we're trying to set something up that matches everything that's going on. So this one's here, this one's here. So I need to trim that just a little bit so when we come into this. So we've established this whole radius here, so now we need to do the inside radius. Our inside radius is this. So if we look at this, there's the whole thickness of my bowl. So to make this work, this has to line up perfect. So we're going to start our circle here, okay? And what I'm going to end up doing is taking the dividers, start it off first, bring my dividers down to where we need it for this diameter. And if anybody has questions, make sure you scream loud fast. I'm going to go slightly underneath the diameter because I'm going to approach it to where I need to be. And I'm going to come across in here, turn my lathe down, start it up. We're going to be right there. Questions? Here, pin drops out here. Is everybody sleeping? If you guys don't like ask questions, I'm going to tell jokes. So we speed it up a little bit. We are turning right here now in a very small bowl. We don't have to worry about the wings or anything along those lines. So all we're doing is cutting this. And I'm going to do something that you should do always just for safety's sake. Check your jaws. We just started cutting. The wings have been moving for a while. There's a lot of vibration into this. And this 10-second little check right here may keep it on the lathe. So I'm starting to turn out my center. Always start at neutral so your tool doesn't roll. You can raise your handle, bring it down, come back into center. Again, we're following that curve into there. Strange thing is that one wing bowl that was on the table, I did that last, so this opening looks really big. And I wanted to see for the let class how it was going to work out. So we're right here right now, and don't be afraid to check. So I'm looking at the radius, how it's swooping, how it's going in here. I know the diameter needs bigger, but my radius in the inside is all even with what I have. So as I increase the distance, it should work out quite nicely. I'm going to go right to my line right now. I'm going to push it in. The center line in this circle is what we want to achieve. So I still need to go in 3/16 of an inch. Diameter is pretty darn close right there. Pick up that cut. Notice my handle's dropping and then coming back in the center. This is the slow part, and wait till you get to the back side, it's even slower. So my diameter is right there. I'm a little low on the inside. So I'm going to cheat. And work out a negative rake scraper. Clean that up. I have a feeling that negative rake scrapers make demonstrators look good. Just clean that out, make the radius. This is going to give me anything where I need to touch it a little more. Bottom's nice and clean. Got to go more in the bottom and just a little on the sides and avoid that one area right there. So this is really important to keep this radius just right, because your hard part is making sure that when we, if you didn't guess yet, cut it in half, everything needs to line up as a circle. If you ever watched Mike Nathel's merging bowl, it's very important to keep the radius just right. Which is a great demo and really making something out of nothing. And the merging bowl is a great demo. So I'm right here and I have a little bit of radius in there. I need to take just a hair off the bottom, but the radius looks really good, but it's not setting in just quite right. So one cut, and if you really pay attention to all this, things work out really well. So you can see where I am with my line. It could go in a little deeper, and there's a void on each side just past the bottom. So I'm going to work out that bottom just a little more, see if that does it. It amplifies if you don't hit it correctly and what everything looks good. Now that looks, I can live with that. So we've cut our dovetail, and we got to make sure that this angle is coming down, and we want this to look like it's part separate. So I'm going to clean this up with a skew. Right here. Create that illusion that the circle is going to go through all the way. And I'm also going to set a recess into this, so it looks like the bowl is floating above the legs. Oh, except for that mark I just put in it. It was looking really good. Okay. So we've created this. You can see where our cylinder is going to be here. We have this floating in here. We have a cutout that's perfectly radius what's going on. We have dovetails, which actually helps our jaws hold it, but it also creates the illusion that the bowl is continuously going to flow. Questions? Cool. Chuck, you got all the notes? Love it. So, I'm setting this in the jaws. I'm not cranking on it because I don't need to have a bunch of teeth in there. And this is where we can sit there and run our center again into this. Love it when it all matches back up. So now I have this under tension. I have this in here. This is actually causing a friction right now. And we're going to sit there and cut these wings. Our biggest challenge right now And any wing, we're going to start getting vibration out here. So the big thing is to establish your arc, about 1 inch of it, before we start cutting farther into this. We don't go back. When you start going back here, all of a sudden you're going to just chatter and it's going to be tore up. So we're in here, we're going to go back to our nice lovely speed. You're shaking your head. What's the worst thing that can happen? Right through. I'm not saying that. So at this point in time, I'm using a smaller tool to establish the first cut. So I'm in here, I can see that pencil line just absolutely perfect. You can't see it on the camera. I see that whole arc. I'm standing here and I see the arc. So I'm going to move towards that arc and make that cut. I see it. Sorry if I don't talk a lot right now. It is all about making sure this hits this right into that aspect, into there, and I am following that line exact. So I've established that cut, and I'm going to be taking the ink line, as you can see. All my cuts in here, so I'm going to go a little further down. Since I have it established, I can come in here, since I'm under jaws, I can do a climb cut into this and bring this down. So I'm going to make this cut. I'm starting to teach myself how the arc is moving. I went a little wide on that, so I need to make one clean cut. You hear the chatter on that. I'm picking up the dust on the tool. There it is. There's my cut. This allows, you can see that you have to be very careful, let the tool float, and that one little chatter went in there is that little mark right there that I had. But I've established my arc. I'm going to switch to a bigger tool so it floats a little easier. Not that I want to take, and I'm moving slowly on this. So now I'm going to rest this tool on the wing and slowly approach that cut. Last cut. Follow that dust. Look at the cut that you're cutting. Not bad. Don't run your tool into that mass in the center, because that will cause a grab. And a grab right now is not what you want. Not bad looking. Again, now we're taking a little more of the mass into this. Still resting the tool on the wing, let it float. I can pick up that cut right there. This is where I start getting used to my cuts, so I know where my arc is and how I'm swinging. I got my foot weight on my right foot, I'm swinging it to the left foot. I got one cut right there, I got one line. I pick up the line, there it is. And I make my cut. Don't be afraid to sit there and stop and see how your cut is. And you can see that I've been just eating that ink line. So we're going to come across in here, and one of the things I forgot to do, my bad. Oh well, we'll be fine. So we have this line right here still. We know that this is sitting right here. So we're into this part. So realistically, all this can be gone from that point back in. So I am going to come back and take a lot of that off, get some of this weight, and I want to finish this wing up so I have a continuous line on that. So we're coming all the way down to this first jaw right here. And I'm going to clean this up so I'm always in solid wood. A little bit of flat there. And it gets easier when you're over here by the core because you have no vibration and you're nice and solid. So if you're doing one of these at home, the big concern you have is your hand in the wing. You want to try to avoid that. This is not good. Hurts. Hurts a lot. So my tool rest is just a little low. I'm going to clean this up a little more. Don't do this to your skew. So this is our radius here, and this is where we're heading. So we're in pretty good shape right there. At this point in time, I'm going to get rid of the tailstock. Before I do, snug that up just a little more. Tool rests are important that you get towards your work. And you don't want to be reaching way out there. So, yeah, I would love to turn this really fast, but I don't have to. That's pretty comfy. We're probably about 1500 right there, maybe a little less. I'm going to bring this down. I'm putting pressure against the jaws right now. I'm not trying to get any outside pressure into this. And now I'm going to start working my radius here. Always going downhill with the cut. Switching over to my right foot, left foot. Tool rest needs to be a little closer. This is why you spin, because get really close right there. So I need to see exactly how I'm hitting right now. And you can see how my radius is forming. We are like right there at that end. Always downhill, working that radius, moving the body. In the famous words of Pat Carroll, we are not wood turners, we're tool holders. So we watch where, so I am like dead on that and that. We are just a little bit right here. So I am going to just come in here, watch where that wing is. Working that radius. Check my radius here. So this shows me right on this part, and this part's high. And I literally could probably come down just a hair if we're coming into this. Yeah, we're pretty close. I'm going to look here where my opening is in here and here, and it looks like we need to come in just a little bit. But my skew is still sharp, and this is where we start to create this so it looks like the bowl is floating by making that end cut right there. Pick up the negative rake. And working that whole radius here, we don't keep it in one flat. We have to move it downhill and keep the radius going. I don't know if you guys can see that. We're close. Just a little more right in here. The reason I don't have a handle on this tool is because I'm not pressing real hard. I was hoping to keep George awake, but I guess not. I got a smile on him. Okay, so we got one little spot right here that is rocking on, and I'm just going to kiss that. So how I made these jigs, I used a hole saw. Boy, is that nice. I don't know if you can see that. It's really nice and tight. So we have this cut, this cut, this cut all set. I'm going to clean up this one little spot right here because we got a ledge. I'm going to kick the speed up a little higher for that. Make this clean cut. I got a little bit of dust right here. Need to clean up. One final cut. I'm going to look and see if I got enough. Yeah, I got enough recess for that. That looks good. So we're going to come across in here. And if you noticed, I did some decorations on the bowl, on the wings themselves. So I'm in here. I really like the the D-Way beading tools. Lincoln, how are those working out? Yeah. Think about beading tools, speed is your friend. I got a little line right there, so I'm just going to camouflage it. You got to do beads in odd numbers. Just when you think you brought all your tools. So I just need to flare out this just a little bit. Not the way I'd normally do it, but it'll work. And that blends into the radius right there. So now, if we're real lucky, our radius should look like it all part of that bowl. So we've established all this nice stuff right here. So at this point in time, we can take a little caliper here, see where our wall thickness is. I'm thick on the bottom by 1/8 of an inch. So we can take this a little more in here, but you get the gist of what's going on, and I can show you a way to complete this. But right here, this sets you up with a real nice winged bowl. So at this point in time, I come across and I set my table saw up. This is a 10-inch blank, so I set it for 4 15/16 and I push it through the saw. Creates this nice 2 halves, which in turn get glued together like this. So now we have our wing. But something says, I was playing around with this and it fell on the floor and I picked it up like this and I'm like, oh, I could change all that. The big thing on this is my inside radius is dead on. So everything starts to play with this quite nicely. This one right here, I didn't do the dovetail on the top edge to create the bowl, and that's why you see the flats. So this is set up like that. I came across in that little maple one that's on the table, I'm like, oh my gosh, I missed by a little bit. And a little bit shows up a lot. So if you look at this one right here, you can see that the radius, there's flats over here, and it kind of like, you guess you can hit it pretty good. This one I did totally by eye, no jigs whatsoever, and just did it. So after it's glued up, you got a couple choices you can play with. And then, so I wasn't happy how that opening opened up, and I said, you know what, I bet you I can do better. So I ended up making this nice little jig here. So I put it on 6-inch jaws. This thing is so tight. There it is. So I put it on 6-inch jaws, and I can clamp it, and it's locked in really nice. So I can return this center pretty easily, and this one needs to be turned. So the big thing here comes into setup again. So we have to have this, so this spins absolutely true within 64th or so. Nobody's going to pick up the 64th, except George or Pete. So I'm in here and I am pretty darn true. So I got this locked in. So the jaws are pressing straight down onto these legs. We can come across here where it's nice and slow, and I can see how my piece is turning, and it is absolutely turning really nice. Do I recommend this? Feel free. But at this point in time, I want to clean this up to a nice radius. I want to make setup for the ball into this. And one of the things that's going to happen here is we need to turn, you know, kind of sensible. So if this works, I'm a hero. If it doesn't, I'm holding my breath, that's why I can't talk. So, making that first cut was a little tough. So I'm just going to clean this up right now. And then I get a rake scraper. Nice and easy cuts, nothing terrible. And you can hear the echoing that's going on, but it did a really nice job cleaning that up. There's still little tool marks. I heard somebody say, what the heck am I doing? George is shaking his head. So, Rick was one to always come across in here and it's like, I'm getting a catch, what can I do? What can I do? And I said, well, go smaller tool. Smaller tools, smaller catches. Big tools, big catches. So I have one of these fish tools that I bought way again when I was going to make little things, and it was totally useless until I put a 40-40 grind on it, and it works really nice. Cutting small. So at this point in time, this is really nicely into the jaws. I would take a little saw and cut these legs down. So that way there's a little step. I didn't bring a saw. So, nah, it's too much vibration out there. So I'm not gonna do that on this one. So I have a nice radius in here. Could use a little more cleanup, but I'm gonna leave it at that. So all my pressure was on these legs going down, not on these legs pinching. So, we need a lid. When I clamp it, the pressure on these depends how deep your cut is, but 2 spring clamps work really well. I'm using wood glue. Yellow glue will molecularly bond where CA doesn't go in as deep. So Type Bond 2 is my premier, or Type Bond Premier. I'm not a fan of 3, especially after gluing it up to a bunch of bowls on that big bowl. But it works for cutting boards. So I'm setting up for the lid. I'm going to do a little different lid that we did before, just for fun, because I got time to kill. Looking for that. Dropping things. So I need a straight line. Whoever gave these in for the auction, I love these. George, they're metric on this steel ruler, so it works out really well. I don't think it helps at all with drawing an X. So coming across in here, putting my little point into here, lock it in place. Move this over. Again, always spin your jaws. And we find something to round this out with. As we turn into a block, we don't come in here and attack this block straight on. Catches happen, nasty things happen, you get hurt, things fly. And we're just setting up for the jaws right now. We got the lathe slow, we're turning it on. I'm going to attack this from the side. As you can see, we have a nice little chatter going on right there. So I'm just going to come across. That's better. I don't like things between centers. So I'm just coming across in here. Lock this out. Set my dovetail up. It doesn't take much to do that. And it makes a stronger turning while you're turning. Things aren't in the way. You're able to swing this all out real nice. All kinds of good things. So, the diameter of my opening, start it up. So that's the outside of my bowl. Let me get rid of this waste. Don't do that. So we are here. As you can see, we're a little larger than what I need, which works out nicely. And I need to do the inside edge of this so the bowl fits in. The lid fits in, I should say. So we're right in there. Get a little less. So I'm going to come across in here. We're going to set up for a tendon in for the bowl, right there. Setting up for my flat, and I'm going to put a slight angle onto this. I can't make it really long because it rolls into the bowl. Not bad. It doesn't hurt to stop and fit. We're the worst. We love all nice snap fit lids, but we need to be sensible on this and how this works. Don't move your tool rest until the lathe stops. That fits really nice. So we established our lid opening. I'm just going to flatten out this little spot right here. We're good there. And we're going to start our radius in the inside. Tool rest is just a hair high. And we need our little circle. We're only making little lids. I think I can work it out now. Nothing's going to fly off the lathe. Dangerous. I do have safety glasses on. It is all about safety. And when you can see, if you look at, on my weight's on my right foot, I'm swinging over to my left foot. I'm doing a dance. I'm creating a stop, start at neutral, make that cut, it goes in. That little grab that I had right there, I have to be careful because that may have loosened it up into the jaws. So make a mental note of that so you know where you are with that. We're working that arc, swinging the handle down, finish up our cut into the center. Always that nice little rock that's going on. Your body shouldn't stop. If your body stops, your tool stops. If your tool stops, no, that isn't going to fit. You're right. Thank you. I'll wing it. Tool down. And back in the center. If we have that nice flowing arc, it creates a circle. So I'm just going to take a little negative scraper on that, since my circle won't fit, and I spent all that time looking for it. Okay, so now what I want is this diameter. We know the diameter is this right here. So that's where we have to hit this. So I'm going to reset my calipers one more time. We're going to come in here. Pretty close. I'm going to make my cut. Check the size. just a hair. You should never make things on size, but what the heck. Once we finish this, we can always run some sandpaper around it, make it work. On the bottom of the wings, because I already have it square, I never touched it with a tool. So I make sure my square is all balanced out, perfectly square on all four sides, top and bottom, and then I never touch those ends. So when I'm turning it and you cut it, everything's 90 degrees, works out flat. No, good question. I was going to say it's magical. One last cut. Just pick up that little bit of dust. And come into that. Okay. So this right here now should fit this radius. So close. Just a little tight, huh? But this is, it's lying to me, huh? Oh, it's a little oversized. Don't fall. Let me give it one more shot here. Leaving it at that. So, I don't know if this is going to work now. I might have to change jaws. Now, would I do that without a tailstock attached? No, I would not. All because I don't really cut all that slow or favorable, and I'd hack it all up. Where's the wax? Ah. So I'm going to quick that into there. Nice little snug. Here's my radius. Watch the turn. I'm hitting. Back that off just a hair. We're going to get rid of this wing. So, our jig's right here. We're in with the jaws right here, so we're just right above that, so that's pretty nice. I think we'll be able to turn our little point out. So I'm just going to do a simple hole cut. I'm keeping all the pressure of the cut into the jaws. I'm a little far away from this. You're going to come across and pull that in. Make sure to lays off every time you turn that off. So we are still a little high right there, which will work out. I'd love to go downhill with this, but I don't think that's going to happen for me. So I'm working that, and I can squeeze out a negative rake scraper. Make sure your tool is anchored to the tool rest so it doesn't pick it up and slam it to the ground. A little high on the height. Visually, I want to make this look like a half a circle. So at this point in time, I'm going to bypass the template because I think it needs to come down a little bit. See how we look? Love it. Lied to me, huh? No, it's not going to matter. I have it as a negative dovetail. Oh, I chipped it. Oh, you bastard. I'm using the tool to press it into the jaws. So the friction of the tool, I'm burnishing wood like crazy, but that is hot. No, it's not going to matter. Oh, you got tape? Oh, tape's wonderful. So tape, shrink wrap. No super glue. Mike, you're my savior. Again. I only expected that from Pete. Pete would go over here, I got gum. I got gum. So still cutting into the jaws. Yeah, right now a nice finial would be on there. I guess I got some black wood, depends on how much time we have. So we're in there like this, we're gonna loosen this up so we don't drag it out too many times. Not bad, not bad. So you can see you can play around with this stuff. Who's got the two halves? Way over here. So if you notice, you don't have to sit there and do it this way. You could literally turn it and have it so it's one leg going one way, one going the other way. So you can play with this whole concept of what's going on. But the whole part of this demo is stop thinking brown and round and like elevate it into a different way. What happens when that bowl breaks? What can we create out of that bowl that's sitting on the ground other than a good funnel? You know, add that little part in there. But, you know, this is, could have went just a little shallower on the width into this. Like I said, this cuts down. You know, we could paint it blue and create an earth on it that's coming in here. When you cut it kerf, it's cutting the height of this bowl shorter. So what happens is you have the perfect diameter here. This is a 1/16 shy of the full radius. So what happens in this, we worked out the center jig, so we made this radius absolutely stellar because we had our circle. So we worked our center section as a perfect circle. So what's matching up on that is the same radius in a perfect circle. So it lines up just right like that, and then all of a sudden you have something that's totally different, and anything that you put in there falls out. Yeah, that's it. So, stand up like this. There you are. So it's to make you think, oh, can I do this? Oh, yeah, you can. But it's also to make you think there's a different way of turning, and the outcome is going to be different than just something right off the lathe. You know, I said, Mike Hosaluk, if you've ever seen some of his stuff, it's too out there. And his stuff is just absolutely amazing. And I definitely had the privilege of taking one of his classes, and it's one of my high points. You know, simple as that. Okay, so the sanding. When I got the full wings, it is real easy to sand this surface while it's like this. It is extremely easy. It's a little more difficult on that one because you got an inside cove. So you're sanding in here, this ball is easy to sand. So at that point and this point, you're sanding. If you get chipping before you cut it in half, I put it on a table saw, cut that edge, cut that edge. You're losing a little bit, but you're not losing the integrity of the bowl. The curly maple one over there, it didn't matter what kind of tool I had. It was chipping. The grain is really crazy in that. But to kiss it on the table saw real quick, got rid of the chips, everything was great. So sanding is, like you know, you're sanding while you can. The bottom, yes, I ended up with, I put the piece of sandpaper there, had the sandpaper like this, put it between my knees like this, and there's what I did. I don't know if you can see that. So that's what I did. And it makes it really easy. When I did the edges, I kept it flat, so I had the flats here and then cut the edges. When I'm cutting on the saw, I have bowl down and I have it backed up on the fence and with a block of wood. So I'm concentrating on, so I have this against my fence, this against my fence. I'm controlling this right here so this falls off. I'm not trying to catch it or anything, let it drop off, but concentrate everything into this point here. Even at that, I have, we have the chop saw that will cut, if somebody gets to the point where we cut, we'll line this up with a block here and I'll make the cut right here. The thing comes down to this is safety. Okay? Safety. Bandsaw, definitely. Your cut's gonna be a little different. Multi-tool, go right ahead, because what's gonna happen here is when you cut it, let's say this is your multi, you're gonna glue it up, you're gonna match this bottom and this bottom here to make your glue, keeping this level as possible, and then all you have to do is kiss it on a sander, and you created this flat surface here. Yes, it would. If you go into the, what's the burning technique that you're not supposed to use? That does all the spider webbing? Yeah, so if you take a number 2 pencil and draw it on the inside and the outside and put your calipers on each side, it will slice it down in half. But you could easily do this with a Japanese saw or even a back saw, just like this, and cut it with a back saw. There's a lot of ways to cut. As everything goes into this, it's not fear that we have to turn this. If you're afraid of this, then don't. But the biggest thing to change your fear into something that's constructive is respect. If you respect the lathe, you respect this piece of wood, you respect your tools, then you know what they can do. And that's going to give you another mindset to say, this is how I can accomplish this. Fear will hold you back. Respect is just that. It'll move you ahead. This is a 2 inches by 10 by 3 3/4, I think. I have 2 3/4 blank, and the foot came out like a mile. Ugly, ugly. So think about this in respect to what your legs come out on. Still comes down to design. You know, a wide base on this and this little bowl on top looks goofy. All right, thank you all.